Working Cows Podcast, Episode 43.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Howdy, everybody. This is Conry, the host of the Working Cows Podcast. Today, we have a little bit different episode for you. Dallas Mount, who inspired this podcast, I've talked to him a couple times, talked about him many times. Just a guy that challenged me in a group of other people. There was all of us there at the High Plains Ranch Practicum, and he challenged all of us that somebody should start a podcast, and I decided I would go ahead and do it. He texted me earlier last week and said, "Hey, it's your turn. I'm going to interview you." So that's about all the information I got from Dallas, and we're going to sit down with him and have a discussion. And there's nobody else I would rather turn the reins over to, so I will turn the reins over to Dallas Mount.
Well, Conry, nice to have you here. I'm excited to interview you. I'm Dallas Mount. I was the first guest on the Working Cows podcast, and was recently driving down the road listening to the Working Cows and thought, you know who we need to interview is Clay. And so I sent him a quick text and said, "Hey, it's your turn," and reluctantly you agreed. Is that right?
Yeah, it's always a little scary to be on the other side of the questions, for sure.
Well, we're going to learn your story a little bit today, and just like to tell, I've got a cold. I'm on about day 3 of it, so if I sound a little hoarse, that's what's going on. But excited to be here. Clay, tell us about your background. What's your background in agriculture? Where did you grow up? What's been your role, and how has that changed over time?
Born and raised in western South Dakota. I don't ever remember a time when we didn't have cows around. My parents both had in-town jobs. My dad kind of started, I think, working in feedlots and stuff when he was younger, 18, 19 years old. And then real young, 20 years old or so, he went to work for, I think at that time it was probably Northwestern Bell, and it's been about 5 other things since then. Now it's CenturyLink, the phone company. And so that was kind of how he financed his ranching habit. Growing up, I think we had about 30 cows around pretty much all the time, and just ran on some leased ground here and there. When I was in high school, that herd grew to a couple hundred. I remember Dad and I calved out a couple hundred cows by ourselves in high school. And then when I went off to college, I think it might have shrunk back down to 100 or so. There was no more kids at home, so the labor force left, and the skid steer came in, and a couple of those new spigots came in, so we weren't bucketing water from one place to the other anymore. And it's funny how that stuff happens. But anyways, and then my dad retired in 2008 from the phone company, and the cow herd grew again. So he's got that retirement, and his cow herd is back up to a couple hundred cows. And so then I came back from college, and I started working some different jobs. We got married. My wife and I got married in 2006, and worked different jobs for a couple of years, and then started at a church in December of 2006. So I got married in August of 2006. And I started at a church in December of 2006. Been full time there ever since, up until a year ago now. I guess it would be a year in August. I started working for my dad part time on his ranch, and bought some cows of my own, and just kind of working my way into more and more involvement on the place. So I'm with my dad 2 days a week, 2.5 days a week, and I'm at the church 2 days a week. So, and then the podcast on top of that.